What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here with Judd Zulgad. Judd, minicamp is over. 5-week break until training camp begins, and we'll see if there's any trouble or intrigue ahead, but at least they knocked one thing out temporarily for now by saying they've at least come to some sort of a agreement to stop fighting with Harvin, I guess.
What's going on here? I mean, seriously, it was a 3-day minicamp. The Lions did it, the Bears did it, the Packers did it. Nobody had this much drama. Skeet shooting in Green Bay was a big deal. What happened here? How did they get into a 3-day spat with Percy Harvin that started out of nowhere and seems to have ended today with a resolution that I'm not quite sure is real or that I understand?
I've talked to a bunch of people in the organization and around the situation. Everyone said no, there were no indications this was coming. It kind of came out of nowhere, caught everybody off guard. Whatever concerns he may have voiced at various points, and I'm sure like everybody does, you have concerns about your place of business, particularly if you're Harvin and you think perhaps you might be underpaid, but nobody knew that was coming out on Tuesday. And as I said to somebody as we were walking back from practice, if Percy just has a better day, maybe someone cracks a joke to him as they're walking off the field, none of this happens. It might happen behind closed doors, but it doesn't become this public spectacle.
Well, I still don't understand if he wasn't going to tell anybody on Twitter, the media, whatever, if he wasn't going to tell them what the problem was, why not just go to the Vikings and say, I'm not happy about X, Y, and Z? Why I don't...
Well, and that's what I'm saying is I think he
right.
probably did do that and didn't feel as though his concerns were being heated.
But then here's my question. Why not come out and tell us what's wrong? That's what I don't understand about this whole thing. Either tell me what the problem is so then I can say, okay, that makes a lot of sense or that makes no sense. Or don't tell me there's a problem. Don't give me on Tuesday the fact there's a problem, but you won't talk about it. I mean, he did the same thing on Wednesday night on Twitter. He's trying to correspond with the fans and tell them what's wrong, but he won't tell them what's wrong. It was bizarre, to put it best.
It could be something that's a little bit more sensitive. That's my only guess. That maybe it's a personal beef with one person in the organization or somebody he wants fired or something like that. Because I've gone through, no one will tell us what's going on. And I've talked to a lot of people. It's very clear the Vikings, as well as Harvin's camp, have put on a do not give anyone any information about this sort of an edict. They're saying we're not letting this get out, whatever it is. But the things I've been able to cross off, I've been told money is not the primary factor. I think money is always a factor in anything. And again, if you're happy with how much you're being paid, little issues probably aren't going to bubble to the surface. But I was told that was not the primary factor. I was told it's not a frustration with the fact that Joe Webb is not getting a chance to be the starting quarterback of the football team. I was also told it's probably not the role in the offense or the snaps, because if that were it, the Vikings could adjust. It wouldn't be that hard. They'd be thrilled if that's all it was, because then, okay, put him on the field more.
Percy Harvin
I don't think it's any of those things.
If Percy is dying to return kicks, if that is his goal in life,
if that's going to make him
if
do
he
that,
says, I'm going to be happy, I'm miserable because I'm not returning kicks, you know what they're going to do?
Put him on kicks.
They're going to let him return kicks. Now, here's the only question. All right, so Percy never told us what was wrong. We still don't know. We know something was wrong. We don't know what. Do you think that by him coming out Tuesday and airing this publicly and really bringing it to a head quickly, whatever it was, everyone in Winter Park knows, do you think that helped the situation? Because that would be the only positive. If he would have kept quiet with the media and it had festered all 3 days, and then they go on this long break, then it's more of a problem. The only positive is if this brought it to a head.
He better hope that this was a really important issue then, because the other thing this did,
I agree.
Because maybe this brought it to a head, but the other thing it did was Percy Harvin has a reputation around the league. There's a reason he was drafted 22nd overall, that he wasn't drafted higher than that. There were concerns, not just about positive drug tests and that stuff, but about insubordination. Well, what do you have here? It's not quite insubordination, I don't think, but it's something where he becomes a distraction the most important 3 days of your entire offseason, and he's causing this sort of a sideshow that's all anybody wants to talk about. Players are being asked about it. That is counterproductive, and now everyone else in the league is looking at him doing this, and you get that same fear that you had of him coming out of college, where he's done so much over the past year, 2 years, 3 years to sort of dispel that reputation. Now everyone's looking at it and they're going, boy, is this really a guy you want to pay? He loves football. He cares. That's not something you can say for everybody in the league, but this is a different thing.
I'll disagree with you. He doesn't love football. He loves Sundays. He is...
Well, that's football.
No, but Brett Favre became the same way, right? Brett Favre loved Sundays. Brett Favre didn't enjoy anything that led up to Sunday by the end of his career. Unfortunately, Percy's a young man who's already there. He doesn't want to practice. I don't even know he wants to be around the team. He wants to play on Sundays, and that's what he loves. But to your point, here's what I think. The Vikings aren't very good. We know that. Percy Harvin's one of their best players. We know that. But what this team cannot afford, and Frazier said this 2 days ago, or yesterday, He's right. They can't afford distractions anymore. They can't afford this type of thing. This is the one thing they can't have going on consistently. This team needs stability. It needs players it can count on. Percy Harvin is a great player, but he's not going to put them over the top in 2012. It's that simple. They can't put up with, for lack of a better term, constant BS from this guy. He's got to decide, does he want to be part of this team? Does he want to play for this team? Or if he wants to be a circus sideshow, then go to a really good team where they say, you know what, we don't care because we need you. They can't have these constant distractions. Unless Frazier, the whole reason they hired Frazier, the whole reason he got the job was because he's pretty good at controlling distractions and he's a very calm, mild-mannered person. If this is the act that the Vikings are going to get from Percy Harvin, they can't afford to have him around, and I'm being dead serious about that.
Let's take a more of an overview on minicamp here, and as much as this really was the thing that sort of overshadowed it, it dominated every media session yesterday. I think I wrote it that it was the 10th consecutive question to start off Leslie Frazier's press conference about Percy Harvin. Finally said, "I'd really rather not talk about the one guy who's not here," but that's in the end what it was. My impressions were, well, number one, compared to how minicamp used to be under the old collective bargaining agreement, where you could have full practice in the morning, full practice in the afternoon, you'd pack in 5 practices over 3 days. This was nothing. There was really not a ton of competitive work. You didn't feel as though you came away, I didn't think anyway, that I had a really good feel for the team. You watch the substitutions, you watch how the depth chart is moving, you get a feel for some things. Things that I found interesting, Harrison Smith and Josh Robinson getting a ton of time with the first team defense. I think they've still got to find out, especially with Robinson when he gets into Mankato and he's actually allowed to play press coverage at the line, which is a huge part of what they do defensively. Is he going to have the physicality necessary? But they're giving him every look possible. Harrison Smith is getting every look possible. I saw Brandon Fusco. Now, Jeff Schwartz is still coming back from the hip. He's still trying to get his conditioning up, but I saw a ton of Brandon Fusco, and I heard positive things about Fusco and his progress. I heard positive things about Charlie Johnson. They think they're going to be a lot better at the guard positions this year, but that's impossible to tell in minicamp because the offensive and defensive lines aren't able to hit each other. There's no live contact permitted. All the stuff is tough to gauge, and when you looked at the quarterbacks, when you looked at Christian Ponder and Joe Webb, I wasn't blown away. I didn't think it was terrible. The offense had a sloppy day yesterday, but overall, both guys, I just see young quarterbacks, and it's going to be part of this process.
I was going to say, we talked about this before. Ponder's going to be just a work in progress. I mean, he's not. This is the first time he's had a full offseason with the team. He's a very smart kid. I think he's a competent quarterback, but he's not going to wow you. It's not going to happen for a while, and that's what we saw. We saw 2 days ago, we saw the perfect example of Ponder. Terrible pass into the end zone, followed by a pass where he threads the linebackers, beats them both for a touchdown to John Carlson. You're going to see some good and bad. And Joe Webb is he's a great athlete. And I really believe that they're probably going to come up with some type of package for Joe Webb. But Leslie Frazier made it very clear today, I think a question you asked. There's not a competition here. There's not going to be a quarterback competition. Joe Webb can play as well as he wants in the preseason. It's not going to come down to a situation where Joe Webb is going to win the job. Everything the Vikings are doing for 2012 is predicated on getting better for 2013. So this isn't a normal circumstance. Joe Webb could have the greatest training camp of all time. And you know who's starting the regular season opener against Jacksonville? Christian Ponder.
We'll go back to 2 years ago. Tavares Jackson was terrible in the preseason. Sage Rosenfels lit it up. Who ended up being the number 2 quarterback? Tavares Jackson. Who got traded? Sage Rosenfels. And Sage had a rough minicamp. Of all the guys out there, Sage just kind of, I know he's working with third-string receivers, but it was rough.
But you know what? Sage, this time around, there's no Sage against Tavares competition.
He's not on the team to play. He's on the team to be the guy in the room.
Sage is here for a reason. Sage knows why he's here. This is no longer a situation of, is Sage competing for a starting job? Sage is going to be very comfortable, I think, as the number 3 quarterback on this team. Rick Spielman loves him. He's going to make the team.
McLeod Bethel-Thompson actually has a pretty good arm. The
greatest name of all time.
It's a fantastic name.
I thought Judd Zulgad
I can finally spell it, but he seriously has an arm. He has this big wind-up. There's a lot of shoulder in that throw. He can throw some darts in there, though.
Offensive line, do you believe it will be approved? Because I actually think it will be.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's taking Charlie Johnson away from the left tackle position, putting him at left guard where he's a lot more comfortable. I've heard that he's also become sort of a vocal leader in there along with John Sullivan of a pretty young line right now, that they've seen him take some steps forward in that regard. Phil Lodolt's in a contract here, and he was better than a lot of people give him credit for, particularly in the run game last year. He sometimes plays high and lazy, a little bit like Brian McKinney when it comes to pass protection, but in the running game, he can move people. He's doing what they expect of him. Matt Khalil is going to have his tough moments, and you saw it a little bit with Jared Allen when they were going 1-1. And these aren't even in contact. It is a good guy to go against.
Lodeholt, here's the one thing that I like about him, though. I do think he plays nastier. Bryant McKinney never played nasty.
Right.
Bryant McKinney was an incredible talent, but a very passive human being. Lodeholt is nasty. I think if Lodeholt puts it together, and I really think his best year was probably his first year, but if he could put things together at this point, I think he's got a future.
Biggest question coming out of this minicamp, besides clearly the development of Christian Ponder, what the heck are they going to do in the middle of the defense? Which is the same question I had coming into minicamp.
Yep.
Not just nose tackle. We'll get a little better feel through the preseason and training camp
Yep.
about whether LaTroy Guyon and Fred Evans are going to be able to hold up against those double teams at the nose tackle position. But the middle linebacker, Jasper Brinkley, 10 months out from surgery, claims it's still a process with his hip.
Yes.
Leslie Frazier swears it's a groin injury. I don't know what's going on. And if Tyrone McKenzie is the top guy going into training, Tyrone McKenzie will not be the guy going into training camp. They're going to have to go out and get somebody else.
Do they potentially re-sign E.J. Henderson?
I could see that.
And here's the thing with Brinkley. The more I think about this, hip, groin, you know what? He's just not playing. To me, that's the biggest thing. I mean, this is a guy who has to play. We really don't know if he can be a starting middle linebacker in this defense. It's not a positive thing that he missed this entire camp. It's not a positive thing he's been banged up a lot lately. That scares me. The other thing that scares me, healthy Harvin, happy Harvin, I don't really care, wide receiver. Wide receiver is going to be interesting.
Doesn't scare me.
You're going to open the season. I'm just saying, you're going to open it. It's going to be ugly. You're going to open the season without Jerome Simpson.
Without
Yes.
Simpson those first 3 weeks, you're going to be relying probably on Greg Childs.
I mean, keep in mind, we're also talking about a team who I don't think we expect much from in 2012.
Right.
But I'm just saying, when you get to the Metrodome to watch that Jacksonville game and there's no Jerome Simpson, could be interesting.
Well, they're going to have some other guys step up into the split end spot.
stay
Emmanuel
healthy.
Arsenault closed minicamp in a
stay
strong
healthy,
fashion.
too.
They need to stay healthy as well. But at the flanker position between Percy and Stephen Burton and potentially Jarius Wright, too, even though Jarius Wright, from what I've seen, has mainly been the slot guy, I think that they've got plenty there. It's the split out whether they're going to have somebody who can stretch the defense early on. But again, they're not going to go three wides a whole lot. They're going to have a ton of two tight sets.
Yeah.
A lot of the passing game is going to come down to those two tight ends in pattern. And if the offensive line is better, those guys can get out in pattern more often.
And yes,
Quit
hopefully
chipping.
for their sake, that's the case. That's going to have to be the case. In fact, do they even at this point, do you think they have a tight end who is a good blocker? Rudolph's improved, but I don't know he's good. I mean, Kleinsaucer was elite.
Yeah, no, I mean, they don't have anybody that's even close to Kleinsaucer, or at least the Kleinsaucer who existed in 2010. Last year when he had the elbow and he was barely playing, he wasn't the same guy. But no, they certainly don't have somebody like that. He's such a unique guy, though, in terms of being 280 pounds and being able to be essentially a sixth offensive lineman at times and take on defensive ends one-on-one. They don't have that guy. Rudolph is more of a space blocker on those backside cutoff blocks on zone running plays. He can handle that, but he's not going to be in there and be physical in line. They're going to look to John Carlson for some of that, but then you're getting into the Mickey Schulers and Alan Reisers. They've got Red Ellison, who's another guy. I was actually told they think Red Ellison's catching the ball pretty good. So that could be interesting, too, to see exactly what he ends up doing. But you're right, they absolutely need somebody more who can block.
And this is our first discussion of many about a rebuilding football team. Seriously. I mean, this is going to be a work in progress. These videos are going to be basically the same for the next, 6 months. We're going to be talking about guys. We're going to be talking about the development of this entire program.
And we should have been making these videos 1 year ago if they had torn things down the way they should have.
I said they should have 2.
He's Judd. I'm Tom. Full Vikings coverage, as always, at 1500 ESPN.com. We'll see you.